Welcome. Hi, I'm Jess, and this is Knit.Purl.Repeat. This is episode 1. I'm coming to you about 3 years later than anticipated, originally planned, but fairly recently a couple of other knitters who have wonderful channels here on YouTube told me you should do a YouTube channel. So here I am, and we can either credit them or blame them if this is either a train wreck or a success. I'm joking, ladies, but anyway, here I am. And I would have also started this last week, except that I live in Tampa, Florida, and you probably heard that we had a hurricane. So Hurricane Milton plowed through here just a couple of days ago. And so there's still a lot of cleaning up going on, a lot of issues associated with that storm, even inland where I live. So if you do hear chainsaws and leaf blowers and other noises in the background, I apologize, but there's a lot of tree damage that has to be dealt with. So that's my story to get started. This is episode 1, so please bear with me. As you likely have garnered from the title of this channel, I am a knitter. I have been knitting for over 20 years, but I also am a crocheter. And I do sew mostly in the form of quilts, machine quilting, not hand sewing. I'm not a hand sewist. We can talk about this later. But machine quilting, also making project bags for myself, gift bags. And I'm on the eternal pursuit of being able to sew myself clothing that fits well. My most recent crafty adventure is spinning. I started spinning January of last year as part of the New to You Make Along hosted by the ladies of Cocktail Hour at the Coop. And I wanted to try a brand new craft that I didn't commit a lot of money to because we know how that's a slippery slope. And so I thought, well, I'll give the spinning a try. And so I bought a drop spindle and some fiber. And let's just say that 2 months later, I bought myself an electric wheel and I love spinning. So there probably will be some spinning content in this video. But since this is the first episode, I'm going to try to keep this a bit short and hopefully limit what editing needs to occur. And I actually need to get to work. So let's dive in and see what we can cover today. So what I'm wearing is a shawl. This is primarily what I knit. It comes really handy here in Florida because in the winter, yes, it gets cooler, and so having those extra layers help, but also the air conditioning, right? Coming inside buildings and restaurants and grocery stores after having been out in the heat and humidity can be really chilly. Also, I'm at that stage of life where I'm pretty much hot all the time and I just get hotter. So having the ability to remove items is key. We'll talk about my sweater knitting a little bit later on, but shawl knitting is my main passion. So you probably have seen this. I'm just checking to show you the right side. I believe that's the right side. This is the lightweight hipster shawl by Joji Locatelli. And no, I am showing you the wrong side. Newbie. So here it is. It's made up of these long sort of X stitches and interspersed with garter and some lace. Really nice project, one skein. I made this last year as part of Joji's fall knit along, and it's one skein. One skein is all it took, a fingering weight yarn. Big key, and lots of others have said this as well. When you make these X stitches, you're making them by working several yarn overs on the previous round. Work those yarn overs loosely because you need to be able to slide them along the needle. If you do it too tightly, they're going to keep getting stuck on your needle. And if you're, of course, using a cable on your needle, they're going to get stuck between the cable and the join. So just work them very loosely because you're going to drop them later on anyway. So this is a great little pattern. This is with me most of the time. It's probably my most worn shawl, primarily because it's shape, and I tend to wear shawls more like scarves rather than over the shoulders. Yeah, so that's the lightweight hipster by Joji Locatelli. I will link this material below. And I also forgot to mention in this version of the video, because of course this isn't the first recording I've made, I will link items in the description box. If I can work it out, I will also put some things up on the screen. But you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Jess's Makes, and I will post that below as well. There you can see the details on the patterns, the yarn I used, all that information. I use Ravelry pretty much consistently. Yeah, consistently. So if you're looking for any of my projects, we'll talk about whips a little bit later, that's the place to go for any detailed information. Right, let's move on to works in progress. No, let's not. We're gonna back up because let's talk about what's finished and then we'll talk about what needs to be finished. So my most recently finished object, the most recent, is this cowl. This is the Cloud Drift Cowl by Gudrun Johnston. I bought the kit to make this from the Woolly Thistle, which is an mainly online yarn shop located in New Hampshire. They do also now have a physical store that's open a few days a week, and I'll link them below. So if you haven't seen this posted on Instagram or anything by Gudrun Johnston or the Woolly Thistle, this is made with fingering weight yarn. It's Jamieson's Spindrift, except the main color, which is this sort of brassy brown tone, is held with one strand of lace weight mohair from Madeline Tosh in the same colorway that was dyed, I believe, to match the main color from the Jamieson Spindrift. I believe it's Jamieson Spindrift. Again, that information will be in my Ravelry page if I've got the wrong one. This is my first time working with any of these yarns. It is, of course, the Shetland wool, so it's quite crispy, very woolly, tactile. It washed up and bloomed beautifully, and it is so soft. I know the silk mohair also helps, but let me put this on. Not like I can really ruin the hair, so we'll put that on. This is probably how I'd wear it, tucked in a little bit like that. So it's a bandana style cowl, really lightweight, very soft, and I just love these colors. I'm normally somebody who's in the blues category, but something about these colors just said I had to make it. So I've made this, it's all done and ready to go this weekend, as I am traveling to New York this weekend. If I can get to the airport in Clearwater from my house without any blockages and there's parking open at that airport, then I will be on the plane to New York and meet up on the hill with Gudrun for the photo of those that participated in her knit along that she had going for this as well. Of course, everybody meets up on the hill. Not everybody, I shouldn't say that. This is only my second time going. Listen to me like I'm an expert. Anyway, if you're going this weekend, I hope to see you there. Say hello. It's a fantastic, fantastic event. So that one is done. So I'm glad I got that finished. It's a fun pattern. It is mosaic knitting. So you're only ever working with one color at a time. Knit across and then following the pattern, and then you just do a couple things on the edges. So it has these little edges that stick out, like haps. Where are they? There they are along the side. And on the return pass, then you're just working the same stitches that you did on the forward, kind of like a forward pass. It kind of reminds me of Tunisian crochet in a way of working forward and back. But it's a slip stitch pattern, so it's really nice. If you've never done one, this is a good one. It's also, you know, a nice small project. You start off, it gets larger, and then you finish, it gets smaller. So that's super fast at the end, and then you just have this little section to graft together. So that's object number one. A couple pairs of socks. So I did my first test knit for Nancy Wheeler of Knit Sip Happy. I did a sock test for her. I love Nancy's patterns. I'm sure a lot of you know Nancy if you're sock knitters especially. If not, one, go watch her video, and two, go check out her sock patterns. This one is the most recent one that she released, and it's called the Stitchery Sampler Sock. And she was inspired by the embroidery stitch samplers. And so what it consists of are 10 different charts that you can mix and match in whatever way you want. So as Nancy says, it's a choose your own adventure. And when you take a look at the testers' photos, you'll see that everybody did something differently. I decided to make the top of the legs the same, using some of the same stitches repeated. You can see some of those on there. It's kind of hard to see in that light, but there's this chart I repeated twice. There's some sort of resting rounds here, and then some stitches here. And then just kind of put some stripes at the bottom, sort of like a hiking sock. But everybody did something so different. There's so many possibilities with this pattern. I tested the 72 stitch size and used the 2.25 millimeter needles that I believe are the same ones in the pattern. If you watch Cozy Meadow Knits, Sophie, if you don't, you should. She also tested the same size sock, and she did it completely differently. What she did with the charts, they're fantastic. I think she just talked about them in one of her most recent episodes, but go check her out as well. So these are a lot of fun, and I can see making very different ones. Oh, I used, as the main color, this is Rambler from the Woolly Thistle. It's their own yarn, so it's a mixture of different sheep breeds here in the US. I don't think there's any nylon in it, so it's a very sturdy yarn. And then the contrast color that I finally ended up with, sort of by mistake, is just a bit of the Lang Yarns Ya Wool. I'm not sure what the color number is. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you somewhere below. But again, it'll be on my Ravelry page. I use that as the contrast color. I wasn't sure how much yarn it would take for a contrast color for this size sock to work all the patterns. So that's also the reason why I didn't do every single one. If you had a 20-gram mini skein and you wanted to just follow the pattern exactly as Nancy's written it out, you wouldn't have enough of a 20-gram mini to work the 72 stitch sock pattern. So you can get creative. You can choose different colors, one color, don't even use a contrast color, whatever you want. It's your sock, it's your knitting. So check these out. I'll link them below or in the description box, wherever it shows up on the device that you're using. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. I'm trying to keep this a bit short, and it's also, the umpteenth time that I've recorded. So I'm sorry if I'm going a bit fast. I'm also a bit congested. So slow down. One of my other recent finished objects is another sock pattern by Nancy. This was not a test knit. This is Nancy's Lake Ontario socks. She did release this pattern this year. I planned to make these in the summer, but I just didn't have that right yarn for it. So I have this one. I actually ordered this yarn when I was on holiday or vacation down in Australia with my family. There was a shop update from 3 by the Sea Designs, and given the time difference, I actually set an alarm and thought, well, I probably missed it because the time difference. They still had some left. So I ordered it, and it came the day after I got home. So, I had to make these socks. So this was the yarn that I used. So 3 by the Sea Designs, they're a hand dyeing company. They also do bags and some other things. They're just down the road from me, down in Riverview area, I believe. This is their, she sells seashells, right? Pretty good. My first episode, and I said it right, on their Sanibel base. I love this yarn. Knitting these socks, I did the 64 stitch sock pattern. I had to go up a needle size because unfortunately I wasn't paying attention. I was happily knitting away. I got down past the heel, tried it on, and it was too tight. I don't know what happened to my feet after we got back from Australia, but they're obviously bigger or my tension got tighter. So I actually made 2.5 socks, but I ripped back. This is how much I have left. So didn't use that much because you have this beautiful lace texture down the front. So here it is without it being expanded. So that helps out. It's cuffed down. It has the slip stitch heel flap, turn and gusset, and then the toe that Nancy likes to use in her sock patterns. It came, it was a sock set. It came with this contrasting orange color. I have a very little bit left. It's not quite that deep. It's a little bit lighter in tone. I have a little bit left, but I've thrown it in my bag for my scrappy crochet blanket. So it's going in there because it's not really enough to use otherwise. And I think that's it for, oh no, I have one more. Excuse me, I have to bend down. So as I said, I live in Florida and I tend to knit shawls, but I love to knit sweaters. And when this pattern came out, I said, I have no reason to be making that. I will never wear that. And then something happened a couple months ago where I thought, ooh, I really want that sweater. So this is the Broom sweater. It's a pattern. It's just called Broom. It's a pattern by Andrea Mowry of Ravelry Knits, and I knit it in the OG colors here and yarn. So this is Oh Dang DK from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. This is, I can't remember their name for the color, but it's this teal color, might just be called teal. I'll put that below. It has a fold over collar. Oh, I just put that in the back so I would know this is the back of the sweater. It does have short rows a bit across the back, but you knit this long collar. You start with the collar and fold it over. I did modify by making the collar about a ½ inch shorter because I essentially have no neck, which I realized. And I didn't want it kind of up here, so I wanted it below at least one of my chins. So I did shorten it a little bit. This is super lightweight and oh so cozy. It's gonna be perfect, especially this weekend for at night. It's a bit too warm now. I haven't taken any outside pictures yet. We'll have to wait a few months. I did not enjoy working with the yarn. It is very sticky, being a DK weight Surreal alpaca with a silk cord. But it blooms up so softly that it was worth it. It just meant that I had to go much slower than I normally would knit. And I made sure after working the short rows that I switched the left-hand needle to about 2 sizes smaller than the gauge needle on my right side so that I could have that gap to make sure I was picking up the stitch through the core, through the silk core of the thread and not just the floof. So normally for Andrea's patterns, I go up a needle size, but for this one I did, my gauge was much looser. So I stuck with the pattern size. I think I knit size 3, but I absolutely love it and I can't wait to wear it. I also lengthened it a little bit more because I have a long torso and I didn't want my belly sticking out if I had to raise my hands. And I made the sleeves, I think, about the same. My arms seem to be a bit longer than a lot of sweater patterns. And do you find that the sleeves ride up sometimes over time? Like you make it, block it, it fits great, then over time they kind of zhuzh their way up your sleeve. I either like my sleeves to be down here where I can grab it or up higher because I push them up. So that's Broom by Andrea Mowry. I love it. Okay, those are my most recent objects. So now works in progress. I have a lot of works in progress. And if you're one of those knitters that makes them very nervous, then you might want to skip even past this point. I'm not going to show you all of them. I will talk about whips later on, lingering works in progress and what I deal with those, how I deal with that. But I like having a lot of different projects for whatever mood I'm in, situation, or if I feel like casting something on, I'm going to cast it on. It's my knitting, so that's what I'm gonna do. That's my happy thing. Where did I put them? Hold, please. All right, I thought I put them closely. Oh, bear with me. Oh, I'm losing some stitches. That's okay. Stick them back on. I need to get some more stitch stoppers. So something I cast on last night, so we'll start with the most recent one. It's actually kind of a recast on. This is a hat pattern that I started in July for the return flight back from Australia, or return flights. There were 3 of them but I kept making mistakes. I tried ripping back, tinking back, and I finally just threw in the towel and said, forget it. We'll use this for another project. So the yarn is, I have the ball here, is one that I bought at a general craft store inside a mall in Brisbane. I don't even remember the name of it, but this is the yarn. And the colorway is hibiscus. It is a worsted weight. It is very soft. It doesn't feel scratchy at all, so hopefully it's gonna pass the forehead itch test. So this is a hat for me. So it is called the Bolton Pass hat. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's from Espace Tricot. And it starts off with this twisted or half twisted rib, 1.25 inch, what do you want to call this? Anyway, that's where you start, at the bottom. It's knit bottom up. I can't find the word. Anyway, so you're only twisting the knit stitches. So it's not a full twisted rib, but you're half twisted rib. And then after you work that, you work some of the hat in stockinette, and the rest, at the bottom, you leave some of the half twisted rib going, but you start decreasing every, or shifting over every 2 rounds and just knitting what used to be a knit and purl rib until it comes to a peak, like a mountaintop. So it's a very easy pattern, really enjoying it. I knit all this up just last night while watching a movie with my son. And this will now be my car knitting when I have to go sit in car line to pick up the high schoolers. This is my knitting project. In fact, I'm getting there in such a timely fashion. I'm not getting much time to knit on it in the car, but you know, it's a good travel project. I'm hoping to have it done for this weekend because I realized I don't have any hats. I had a hat this when we were in the winter in Australia in June and July, but I realized while we were there, it was the only hat I packed, and it was actually too small. It kept shooting up my head, and I look at all the photos, and I've got this massive, weird band and this cone on top, so you won't be seeing any of those images. It's not going to be a gift hat. And I have a very nearly finished object. All I have to do is finish this last round and bind off. This was a mystery knit along, and even though all the clues are out, if you are working on the Witch's Brew cowl from Telly Bean Knits, then, and don't want to see it, then look away. This is all done in, for me, in superwash yarns, mostly from Stash. I did order some yarn from Miss Babs. She had full kits, but I had some similar colors in Stash that I used, but I did have to order the colorway white peppercorn, which I love. I need to order more of that, or maybe get some on the weekend when at her shop or her stall, their stall. And I had a little bit that I stole from the West Knits cowl from last year. I haven't finished Geo Gradient. We won't even get into the whole thing about that event last year, but I did eventually pick it back up, start over, and I'm still working on it. We'll talk about that later. I did steal some from there, but I think I'll have enough left to finish the shawl. Otherwise, I just have to order some more. So it started with, there were 13 days, and this was day 1, is this black and white stripe color work, which I really loved. And then day 2 moved into this, it's gonna blow out the color, but this lacy pattern. My yarn is not that fluorescent. It's much warmer than it's showing up. And then day 3 was this pattern down here, and this I used the white pepper and cordovan. Cordovan is the one I stole from my cowl. And then we got into this section of supposed to be Eye of Newt. Mine didn't turn out too well. It actually looks better if I don't highlight it. It's a bit loose, but it's okay. That was fun. Hats, cats, phases of the moon, and one of my favorites, which is this section. I love it with the potions and the crystal ball. And then one of the next to the last clue were the cauldrons. I held a lace weight cereal alpaca in this orange tangerine tone with the yellow to kind of tone it down as my vapor. And then we're finishing off with this 2x2 ribbing at the bottom that occasionally you have one column of knit stitches that are to be the wands, so like the witch's wands. And then you have the option to add little fringes off those if you want to turn them into brooms instead. I'm not really sure. We'll see. But I'm almost there. Showing you my floats, which I don't mind, but I'm almost there. So maybe I'll get that done today. I do have to get to work, so I need to finish up. So my last work in progress that I'm actively working on is the Mabel's Sweater from Joji Locatelli. I'm knitting it as part of her current fall knit along. So I'm in team pullovers for this one. And I think that's there we go, that's the back. Doesn't really matter at the moment, it looks the same. So I'm using this hand-dyed yarn from Hot Patch Yarns, I believe it is. I will link them below. In this beautiful rusty orange and brown tones. The skeins were just slightly different from each other. They are hand-dyed. So I'm doing, working kind of a fade as I fade from one to the next hank. So I just finished the first ball and I'm working the yarn forward method and alternating every other round with ball number 2. And I'm hoping to leave a little bit of ball number 1 left to do the same thing on the sleeves. I'm not sure it'll really matter, especially for the sleeves, but it's an experiment to see how much should I leave over to fade that in for sleeves. I don't really know, so we'll find out. So this is worked in a half fisherman's rib and it creates this really nice waffle texture to it. So it's very kind of squishy. It is fingering weight. The pattern yarn was 400 yards per 100 grams. I got gauge using this one, which is, I got close to gauge using but this is 437 yards per 100 grams. So what I did is I stuck with the same size needle, but I went up a size. Plus I have these arms. So I find with Joji's patterns, same with Andrea Maury's, I always have to increase for the arm circumference here. So this is Mabel's Sweater. I have not seen the show. I don't have that streaming service. It's unfortunate because I love the actors that are in there, but I don't know. Maybe someday I'll watch it, but I love it. It reminds me of the waffle knit long sleeve kind of thermal shirts that I wore when I was living in Minnesota. So I'm looking forward to having this. It won't be for this weekend, but it'll be great for here during the winter time and when I travel. So that's it for my current works in progress. I was going to talk a bit about spinning and my recent acquisition. Sorry, I'm just looking around to see if I brought it back or not. But since this is my first video, I thought I would keep it, I gotta stop looking down. I thought I would keep this kind of brief, but I will talk a little bit about spinning later on. I have some interesting questions to ask you about not how to spin, but just making in general and your memory and having multiple projects. So I'm also going to try to stop saying so often. Thanks for joining me. If this is something that you enjoyed, that's great. I hope you come back. I hope I make more episodes. It depends. Maybe nobody's out there except those 2 individuals who told me to make this channel. That's okay. And if this isn't for you, then no need to tell me. Just quietly leave and go find another channel that works better for you. So hopefully I will add more content in the future. And until then, happy crafting.